And from Augusta, Mr. Scott Van Pelt. Scott, so let's start with this. Wilbon and I are newspaper guys. So when we go to events, we are always looking for the column. It seems to me the column is if there's any tension between the Saudi Tour guys and the PGA Tour guys. You're down there. Do you get any sense of what that relationship is right now?
I think, Tony, that largely that fire is fueled by the oxygen of column writers at this point. I don't sense that that's a real issue at all between these players. To that point, Rory McIlroy and Brooks Koepka out practice round on Tuesday afternoon. Now, I think much like any workplace dynamic, there are players that don't like one another, but I don't think that's necessarily new to which tours they're playing on. I understand it's an undeniable angle, and it's the first opportunity we've seen for these guys to compete on the major championship stage. But I believe the column this week is that McIlroy, Scheffler, and Rahm all arrive with real expectations to win, what would it represent to them? I think Low Man at Augusta is the storyline that's the column, not Live versus PGA Tour.
Scott, I'm so glad to hear that answer because I'm watching the coverage, reading and listening to coverage from everywhere, and I was wondering, okay, is there a golf tournament actually being played there, or is this perceived feud bigger than the golf? If we skip to the golf, what's being talked about there on the ground?
The Masters. The excitement about this first round of the Masters tournament, the first major championship round of the year, the fact that so many different players, top players arrive having won. Look, if you want a live angle, and I happen to find this one really interesting, Brooks Koepka won his most recent event. This is a guy who's won count them, four major championships. He's been a runner-up on this golf course, and he's healthy. I happen to think he's a very interesting storyline, but it's as it relates to the Masters, not which tour he's affiliated with. So I think it's a resounding yes. Honestly, Michael, here I get 0 sense. I mean, you walk around amongst the patrons, there are thousands of people. No one's said a word to me, not a single word. Hey, Scott, how about Live? Nothing. They want to know who's going to win.
I bet people have said, Scott, how about Tiger? And so we go there quite naturally. I mean, how does he look? Yep. I'm looking at him thinking, that's a noticeable limp. And then I'm like, well, stop it. Maybe it's not a noticeable limp. What's the word on his health? And just the buzz around Tiger Woods as we go into this.
As you know, Michael, he's one of one. He's that singular player who, if he were to birdie 2 or 3 in a row, would be enough to entice you to the edge of your seat to wonder, maybe, right? And as Rory McIlroy, who played practice rounds with him, said, he's got all the shots. Then Tiger came in for his presser and said the same. Look, I can hit every shot. The question is, how can I get up and down, and how can I get around this golf course? And that is a question that we don't know the answer to, and I'm afraid will be impacted by weather, which sounds like it might be really ugly. I mean, we're talking about potentially going from the 90s on Wednesday to the low to mid-50s and a bunch of rain on Saturday. So how does that impact the golf course in the tournament? Well, that will impact everybody, but it might impact Tiger's ability to get up and down and around more so than anybody. So I'm afraid that could be the one the caveat as it relates to his chances.
Thank God you mentioned weather, because Wilbon and I are so old that we are obsessed with weather, and we wanted to know about the weather. So now we can move on, and I'll get you out of here on this. This is something that's expected of you. Are there 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people where you say, I think they can win? By the end of Sunday, I think they can win.
Well, the 3 I mentioned earlier that I think are the biggest talking points, the Rory, Scottie Scheffler, and Jon Rahm trio. I mean, there's like a prop. Would you take them or the field? I'd always say give me the field, just because that means I get everybody else, and there are plenty who could still win. I think Xander Schauffele's a player who could win. I think Jordan Spieth, his imagination around here, the fact that he's won here, the fact that weather could be part of it, I think might eliminate some. But absolutely, look, I think there are 25, 30 players who could win. I understand if you want to take the top 3 in the world and take your chances, I'd still take the field, because that gives me some of the players that I just mentioned. And you know, it won't be a name from out of left field because you're already talking about the smallest field of any major championship, and there are far too many excellent players playing well. I said Xander. If I can pick him out of a hat, and I ought to play the Powerball, but I mean, I'll take my shot with him.
Thank you, Scott, and enjoy yourself down there. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Love you, miss you.